Hi everyone. All right, so for the first class for CP4411, I'm just going to go over the course really briefly and then kind of focus on setting up our development environment. So that's going to be a little bit more of a challenge because we're working remote. So you're going to have to take on that responsibility of making sure that you've set up your Oracle database and that it's working correctly, so then we can begin doing some of the material and learning SQL. All right, so for the course, most of what we're going to be doing is writing queries, basically using a database in Oracle. And we'll be writing queries, we'll be doing things like writing some procedural functions, we'll be doing some reporting, we'll be doing some more complex queries and reports. There's quite a bit of material it covers. Now, the book for the course this will be, of course, posted on D2L, but it's Murex Oracle SQL and PL SQL, okay? So I'll post that. Now, you may not have a physical copy of the book like I do, but you can certainly find this book online and get an online copy of it. All right, so for the evaluation, we'll be doing several assignments. These are going to be worth 20% of the mark. There's also going to be a midterm exam, which will be worth 40%, and then a final exam, which will be worth 40% of the mark. All right, so for the environment setup, basically there's really two main steps, and I'm going to try to walk you through them today and show you, what I've done in terms of setting up my environment. But basically, you need to download a product called SQL Developer, and you can get this on the Oracle website. And then the other step is you have to download an Oracle database and install that. Once you have both of those installed, then you can launch Oracle Developer, and you can basically configure it so it connects to the Oracle database. And once you've done that, you can then basically connect to that database and create new tables, modify the data, write queries, all the stuff that we're going to be doing. Now, in addition to that, I should mention there's two interfaces we'll be using throughout the course. One of them, and I'll show you both of these today, one of them is called SQL Developer. Okay, and this is a GUI interface where basically you have a text editor, you can configure your database, run queries, do all kinds of stuff. The other one is a command line interface, and that is called SQL Plus. So we'll look at both of those. And some functionality exists in SQL Plus that doesn't exist in SQL Developer. So there will be times where we'll need to use one or the other. Okay, well let's go over the environment now. All right, so just looking here at the D2L shell, and there's a few things I've got posted so far. All right, so we have the peers outline. For you guys to take a look at, you can see what the book is listed there, and then each of the topics that we'll be covering as well. But then we need to focus on our software setup, so I'm going to download this document here. And basically it runs through some of the steps for setting up the database. So as I mentioned, there's pretty much two main things here. First one is setting up the Oracle database that they have listed, and then the other one is downloading SQL Developer. So there's a link here, I'll click on this, and this is an installation guide for the Oracle database. All right, so installing the database. All right. So before I can do that, I need to actually go, and this doesn't actually provide a link to get the database. So I'm going to go and search for that. So I want Oracle XE database. Okay. All right. So this would be the correct link here. So basically, I want to download the Oracle 18C Express Edition for Windows 64. So you're going to want to go ahead, download that database. And then once you have that downloaded, then you're going to go through the instructions, which are basically covered in this installation guide. So essentially, you're just going to double click the installer, and you're just going to go through pretty much all of the series of prompts. Now, it gives you a few tips here that you have to be logged in as the administrator to get that to work. Then in each step, you're going to move to the next prompt. It's going to provide you with an installation folder. I just used the default folder that I was given, and I didn't have any problems with that. Now, this part does become important. It's going to ask you for a password, and so you're going to want to definitely pick a simple password and write it down. So in this case, for user sys or system or PDB admin, this will be the same password that you will use for all 3 users. So in my case, I used system as my password with a capital S. Okay. All right. So then I went on and it basically completed the installation. Now, it is recommended, I think, to make note of these, write down these different connection pieces of information. I didn't actually do that, but it might be a good idea to at least screen capture this last, basically this last prompt here. Okay, so once you have that set up, then the other thing to keep in mind is you might want to refer back to this document later on to basically when you want to actually connect to the database to make sure everything is working properly. So we'll come back to this in a minute. Now, the other thing you want to download, I'm going to go back to the instructions, is going to be to download SQL Developer. Now, there is a link here. Oops, okay. All right, so this is the links here for SQL Developer. And the one that you most likely would like to install is the Windows 64-bit version with JDK8, okay? So basically the database uses Java to connect the databases. Because of that, you need to have the JDK installed. So the easiest thing is to just use this one. So you can go ahead and download this, this file. And once that has been downloaded, then you're going to unzip it, and I've got mine unzipped right here, and you go into the SQL Developer folder, and from here you can run SQL Developer. All right, so it's just going to fire up. All right. Now from here, you need to go and make a connection to a database. So to do that, if we look back at our setup instructions, okay, let me just go back. I can't. Okay, 1 second. Go back to downloads. Okay. So in the setup instructions here, we've downloaded SQL Developer, we've extracted it, and now we've used we've run the SQL Developer command. So at this point, we need to connect to the database, and this is kind of what's shown here. So basically, to do that, I'll walk through some of these instructions now. You can come here and create a connection manually. So when you pop this up, you need to give your connection a name. So I'll say connection 1. For database type, yeah, everything else here, you're going to leave it as the default. And then for the connection, you're going to put in a username and a password. So I could use the username of system, and then I'll use the password that I created with a capital S and then lowercase rest of the word system. And at this point, I can then test the connection, and it'll see if it'll actually work. Okay, so in this case, and this is something I ran into, is that my connection would not work based off of just these the instructions. So I had to do a little bit more work, so I'm going to show you some of the steps that I had to do. Now, if I go back to the documentation for the database, So this is number 6, connecting to the Oracle database. Basically, there's a service that has to be running that allows you to connect to the database in SQL Developer. And there's a command here that we can run from a command prompt, lsnrctl, and we can then give it the option status, and it'll print out information that is valuable to us. So I'm going to open up a command prompt, and I'll run this command. So lsnrctl status. Okay. So the information here says that it says that this service is running. It appears to be running. But you'll notice here where I put in the local host, okay, right here for host name, all right, it's giving me a private IP address of 192.168.2.3. And it's also giving me a port of 1521, which is what was entered as default. So in my case, the fix that I need to use is to enter in that IP address, 192.168.23.2. And now I can try connecting again, and let's see if this works. It's taking its time. I'm not too confident that I've got this quite correct here, but let's see. It's longer than it normally takes. Oh, okay, so I put in the wrong IP address. Okay, hold on. So it's 2.23. Okay, and there we go. Now that actually connected. And I've got my database here, connection 1. So I can basically open that up, and I can see that there's a whole bunch of tables that come with this database. Now I'm going to show you one other thing. If you were to run that command, and we'll just go back here again, and this is the command lsnrctl, and you got some error messages, all right? Basically saying that the service that is going to listen for the database connection isn't running. So in that case, you would go into your search tool in your Windows, and you would type in services, okay? So services are basically background programs that are scheduled to run. And there's several that are related to Oracle. So I can scroll down, and I'll see here that I have a bunch of different Oracle services, okay? And the one that I'm interested in is this one here, this Oracle Home Listener. And you can see here that it's running, okay? If it wasn't running, I could just simply right-click on it, and I could just say to start this service up. But it should be running for you. All right. Okay, so I've got pretty much my database connected here. And the next step I'm going to do is we're going to be, when we do our class work, we're going to be working with pretty much a specific set of databases and tables. And the scripts, we have a set of scripts that are on D2L, and these scripts are basically the 3 different databases that we have that we'll be, using and doing work with. So I'm going to go ahead and download these. All right, and the next step I want to do is I'm going to actually run these scripts. And what these scripts do is they basically reinitialize the database that we're going to be working with. They delete any previous tables, and then they recreate and add data to the tables that we want. So I'm going to go here. I can go and open these files here. So I have to go to my downloads. Okay, and let's see here. We have Bookstore, Employee, and Summit. Those are the 3 files. So I'm going to open Bookstore first. All right. And what we notice here is we have a bunch of commands. The first set is drop. So what that's going to do, that's going to remove, if we had previously run this script, it's going to remove the tables that we previously had. It's going to reinitialize our database. Then after that, it's going to go through and it's going to recreate each table and add data to each of the tables that we want. So we can see here that we have a bunch of tables related to a bookstore. So we have things like customers, orders, books, authors, all kinds of different tables related to that. And then for each of the tables, it's going to insert a series of values. Now the other thing you'll notice at the top, it says connect AP. In our case, AP is not a username. When I set up my database, we have a user called system. And so I'll just put in the command. I'll edit this right now. So it's system. And then the password I used is system with a capital S, okay? So I can now go ahead, and there's two options here. I can run just a statement. That means it'll run just one line in my database, or I can run the entire script. So I'm gonna go ahead and just run the entire script here. All right, and it wants to choose a connection. I'm gonna use the connection I just created. All right, and it goes through and it basically runs all of the commands in the script. And you can see that this was, for the most part, a success. There is one error here. It looks like there's a bad value from one of the inserts, but we'll just don't worry about that. I can go back and edit that table and I'll re-upload it with a correct one. But everything else is good. And also you notice that the tables are showing up in my database. So I now see a book table, a book author, and we know that these are tables that came from that script because they all have the B_ prefix attached to them. Okay, so let's do the other scripts. So I'm going to go File, I'm going to go Open, User, and then I want Downloads. Okay, the next one I'll do is the employee table, so I'm going to open that. And same thing here, I'm going to change my connect prompt, so system. Okay, and we can see here there's a whole bunch of tables, jobs, departments, colleges. So I'm going to run this database now. Okay, I'm seeing a bunch of errors there. Okay, so we'll have to fix that. Let's just go see though, did these tables actually get created? So I'm gonna refresh my tables here. Okay, I'm not seeing those tables. Okay, so there's some filter applied here. So I just had to go up and I had to, not exactly sure what I did there, but I should really just remove this. Okay, so I just removed the filter and we can now see that all of the tables. So we have colleges, degrees, departments, employees, job history, and jobs. These have all now been added to our database. All right, let's do the last one. So I'm going to go Open, User, Downloads, and the last one is Summit. All right. Okay, so same thing here. I'm going to change my Okay, and I'll run this this script. Okay, so I am seeing a bunch of errors. I'm gonna have to get this sorted out. These scripts should just, we want to just basically run these, and the database should be initialized properly. You will sometimes get a few errors. In this case, I'm trying to drop a bunch of tables, but those tables do not exist yet. That's fine. But when I come in here and I'm getting a bunch of data errors, that's not good. So I'm gonna have to take a look and see what's going on there. All right. Okay, so essentially once we have the database all set up, then we can basically create new files. And in this case, I'll create a SQL file. And in this case, it just gives me a default untitled.sql, and that's fine. And now I can actually I can write simple SQL commands. So for example, if I wanted to, let's look at the one of the tables here. So if I wanted to write a very simple query, so I could go select star from b_author, and I can go and run this command. And you can see right here, it's going to go through and it's going to select all of those people from the author table. And if I double click on that table, I can examine the data. This is basically showing me the values I have for that. And I should also be able to look at the data. I can't remember exactly how to do that, but you can also go and examine what data is actually in the table. Okay, so we can do different queries. We can basically work with these tables and learn basically SQL using that, okay? So one other way that we can do some development is also to use what's called SQL Plus. So instead of using sort of this environment, SQL Plus is a command line environment. So if I'm using a command line tool, I can just come in here and basically, if I'm looking at my install instructions, I believe it's listed, that I would just come in and I would type SQL Plus / as sysdba. I would type that at the command prompt. So let's try that out. Okay, so I'm now basically set up here, but I can't, if I try to run, I haven't actually connected to logged in as a user. So I need to say connect system, actually wait. And it's asking me for my password, and I'll use the same password, capital S, lowercase, rest of the word. Oh. Okay, there we go. Phew. Okay, so I'm connected. So now I can do very simple queries. I'll do the same query I did before. So I can go select star from b_author. And there we go. Okay, I'm able to access that data. So basically, before we can move on and begin, doing some learning in this course, well, it's really important that you guys get set up and we get the environment working. It looks like there is a slight issue with the scripts. I'll take a look at that and I'll repost scripts that work. But for the most part, even though there were a few errors, it appears that the data is pretty much there, that we can start writing at least simple queries for now. So this isn't those script errors when creating the database. That's not something that's going to slow us down initially. Okay, and we'll get that sorted out. But the big push now, you guys need to get this set up today. So if you run into any issues, you can ask myself or Vasantha for assistance. We'll be available through email. And this video hopefully should help you guys to go through and do the installation. Also, I mean, there is a lot of documentation. So when I was setting up my database, I definitely followed the instructions here, installing the database and then connecting to the database. So I think I'm gonna stop here for today's just first class. So please go in, install the setup the developer environment, and if you run into any issues, please try to go through the documentation. If you end up getting stuck, you can always ask for assistance. And then in the next class, we'll get into doing some of the actual SQL work. Okay, I'll talk to you guys later.